Hey everyone, welcome back to the Critic-Verse. Today we are finally going to be up to date with Superman and Lois with Season 3, Episode 8 titled Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Now, before we get to the review, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to build the community and we can talk about our favorite show together. Now, on to the video. Episode 8 is once again titled Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, which is referencing the 1967 and 2005 film of the same name, where, in both iterations, someone in a relationship goes to dinner with their significant other's family and the dinner goes awry. Now, in this episode, Nat goes to dinner to meet Mateo's parents and knows absolutely nothing about them or the connection between Mateo's father and her father, because John Henry really wanted Nat to be a normal teenager this season. First, we get a brief montage of Lois getting chemo and then the after effects of chemo ravaging her health, and then Clark and the boys trying their best to help however they can. Jordan is downplaying John's volunteer status at the fire station in a really condescending way, kind of off-putting. Then Jordan reveals to Clark that he and Sarah are hanging out, something that we haven't seen since earlier in the season, but is glad that they're continuing the friendship plotline because their relationship didn't really work out, last season especially. Jonathan arrives at the fire station, and when Kyle pretends to give him the riot act, but really everyone is just surprising him with his own gear and spot where they hang up their clothes. And that he's gone from volunteer status to junior firefighter for a program that they enrolled Jonathan in. Lana gets a reminder for a concert she and Kyle were supposed to go to before everything in their marriage kind of fell apart. She invites Sarah, but Sarah shoots her down really quickly. The Mannheims are getting ready to go to dinner while Pia begins to have a coughing fit. While Bruno wants to cancel, Pia refuses, noting how important it is to Mateo. Chrissy has been working on an article exposing Pia as Bruno's wife, believing that it could help them uncover more about Bruno. But Lois's friendship with Pia has her turn on Chrissy's work and call it a gossip rag and that she doesn't want her name on it. Clark tries to talk to Lois about the article, and Lois admits that she's too close to this story and that she's kind of done investigating Bruno. John Henry drops Nat off for dinner with Mateo's parents at Little Aces, and it looks like he hasn't kept up with Clark and Lois recently, or even done a background check on Mateo, which I guess is kind of nice, but with him respecting Natalie's privacy, but also not great considering we know who Mateo's father really is. Lana offers her tickets to the concert to Clark and then to Chrissy. Both turn her down, and after an awkward exchange with Chrissy, Lana leaves, and Clark admits that he wants to keep looking into Pia and flies with Chrissy to Metropolis to talk with someone who may have some background information on her. We then get a hilarious spoof of an airline commercial for Luther Air, further teasing an appearance by the iconic character Lex Luthor in future episodes. General Lane then drops off special files from Argus, the government agency that got special attention in the Arrowverse before Superman and Lois was disconnected from the Arrowverse at the end of Season 2. Sam even name drops John Diggle. Sam tries to push Lois into picking up the investigation again, saying that it's her cancer that might be clouding her judgment, even offering to go over it with her. But soon an alert goes off at the fire station As the actual firefighters get ready, John asks Kyle if he can come along, and Kyle says as long as he agrees to stay with the truck. To watch and learn, so to speak. But what could go wrong? They arrive at the scene and all the firefighters jump to action. While waiting by the truck, Jonathan sees Jordan fly into the fire and rescue someone and takes off, leaving John to deal with the aftermath. And for some reason, Kyle thinks John busted down the door on his own and rescued the man. And while John knows the truth, he knows that he can't say anything, and then he gets sent home by Kyle. Lois feels like herself again after looking through the files and realizing there's so much more information that Argus had. But then she finds out that her dad had a date and that he's using Lois as an excuse to stand his date up. But Lois doesn't let that happen. She tells him to go. Clark brings Chrissy to talk to the other cancer patient Pia was always shown with, who's known Pia for a very long time, since she was a young girl, saying that she used to babysit her daughter. But during high school, she noticed a change in Pia, like Pia got more silent. This is probably the point where her powers manifested. Bruno and Pia seem like normal people at dinner, embarrassing their son in front of his girlfriend, but Pia's powers start to manifest beyond her control, but she quickly reins it in again and just changes the subject to embarrassing her son once more. Jordan introduces Sarah to the cure, but John barges in just then, angry at Jordan for showing up, mockingly calling him Superboy and putting his future career in jeopardy. The argument progresses to a point where Jordan belittles John because he has powers and John doesn't. And this is really off-putting for the character, and it kind of just supports why more fans want both sons to have powers. Chrissy and Clark return to the Gazette to find Lois bringing all the files there. And the investigation, at least her investigating spirit, has been reignited by all the info she uncovered in the files. Sam arrives at the diner too late, and his date has already left. Lana is also there eating alone, and the two seem like a pair of lonely hearts in this episode. Sarah helps Jordan to see where he went wrong in his situation with Jonathan. And it's amazing to see how level-headed Sarah can be when she's not the one in the argument. Later, Team Gazette furthers their investigation into Mannheim around the time Boss Moxie was killed and admitted to by Lex Luthor, who admitted it on a tapped phone line, and they begin to find some inconsistencies with that story. John Henry is talking with Darlene, his alternate self's sister. She then admits after seeing him that she misses her brother, and he tells her about Nat and Mateo, and after revealing his family took Nat to Little Aces, Darlene reveals who frequents that place. John Henry shows up, and even though Mateo announces that's Nat's dad, Bruno doesn't care, and all the other patrons are actually revealed to be Intergang members. After the kids are taken outside, Bruno starts wailing on John Henry against Pia's wishes. Back at the Gazette, while listening to the recording of Luthor confessing, Clark hears the same sound he hears whenever he faces off against Onomatopoeia, and then realizes the confession is false. Now back at Little Aces, John Henry called his suit while he was knocked down, and now he's attempting to stall for time as his suit is on the way. And it's this really cool shot as the suit arrives and Pia fires off a sonic blast at the suit, and it assembles backwards onto John Henry. Pia then blasts John Henry outside, and it seems like his suit isn't a match for her sound manipulation powers. And the actress that plays Pia puts in an amazing physical performance to show off using the sound powers. But then Superman shows up, having heard him all the way at the Gazette, to take the brunt of the attack. But Pia is overexerting herself in her condition, which causes her to collapse. Clark tells Bruno that Pia needs to go to a hospital and that he has to take her now, to which Bruno agrees, just as Mateo and Nat arrive. Bruno then tells John Henry to leave, and he takes off, carrying Nat away. Pia is then shown being treated and contained at a government facility, but John Henry and Superman disagree about how to handle her in that condition, saying that Clark got too close to her in his secret identity. Sam, after being pushed to get back out there by Jordan, pushes Lana to get back out there so she doesn't become like him. While Nat is worried about Pia, John Henry forbids Nat from seeing Mateo, again kind of making them a Romeo and Juliet pairing in the show. Lois is remiss for having put Lex Luthor away for a crime he didn't commit. And just then, the episode ends on a montage where all our characters are at, with The Cure's love song ballad playing over it, finishing on the shot of Bizarro opening his eyes. Okay, this was a good episode. Certainly wasn't the strongest episode in the season, in my opinion, so far. More superhero action compared to episode 7, considering Superman wasn't in it at all. I mean, Clark was, but he didn't put on the suit at any point. But the acting in that episode was superb. But more about this episode. This episode felt somewhat like a mid-season finale, given the show did go on a short break after, and given how the episode ends. So right now, most of the cards are on the table. Onomatopoeia has been revealed. Lex Luthor is on his way, with Lois and Clark maybe getting him out because of the false confession, and Bizarro returning to life. So the rest of the season is gonna be crazy. I mean, we get revealed that Kyle is suspicious of some of the saves that have been going on in town because Jordan left a really huge spot of ice in a fire. He's not being as careful as Sam recommended him to be last season. And I've seen a couple people wonder, why didn't they tell Kyle if Sarah is allowed to know? I mean, it would make more sense to tell the town's fire chief instead of his daughter knowing. I mean, his wife, Lana, being the mayor, she should know. But it would be smart to let the town's fire chief in on it too. One thing I noticed is that this season, Jordan has been very unlikable. I mean, this episode especially, just how he belittles John's accomplishments. In episode 6, he kept making fun of how baggy John's shirt was, even though it wasn't even his to begin with. And then he makes fun of the nickname that John gets at the end when he gets his actual shirt. But we've also been shown that when Jordan has these accomplishments and John is there to witness it, John doesn't do the same to him. And it kind of feels like Jordan needs to get knocked down a peg to humble him, given that also during this season he's been given an immunity to kryptonite, whereas even Clark doesn't have that. That he's been getting a lot of wins, and it feels like he does need just to take an L just once this season. All in all, it's a fun episode, and I can't wait for the rest of the season. Now, there's no word on whether the show has been picked up for season 4, but there's a huge possibility that if it will, it'll get transferred over to Warner Brother Discovery's new version of their streaming service, Max. And I'm kind of interested to see how that will go, especially with what changes it could bring to the show. Let me know what you think how the show will change if it does transfer over to Max versus keeping it on the CW. And let me know of your thoughts on this episode and what's to come. Thanks for joining me, and see you next time on the Critic-Verse.